The ongoing saga of the battle between Jacob and Esau, one that began in a womb and is still going on. I mean, am I talking about the battle of Esau and Jacob from Scripture or from what we see happening around us today? I think the answer is yes to that one. Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the month of December 2020. If you thought that November was a little on the crazy side and chaotic, well, let's just hang on and watch what happens in this month. It could be an interesting one. Okay, I know that Barry Phillips has done a couple of videos with Mark Webb on his reunion roadmap program that they do together, and it's on Barry's YouTube site. It talks about the alignment of the stars and planets and everything that's going on in December and into January. Well, as someone asked me about it yesterday, actually, they said, so what do you think about this date of December 21st, I think is the date. And I'm not in any way making fun of the teaching that Mark did on this. I find it fascinating. But they asked me, what do you think of December 21st? I said, I'll tell you on December 22nd. And that's kind of how we have to deal with life today. We'll see what happens as we go along. Well, let's go to Genesis chapter 32 and talk about the continuation of Jacob and Esau and see if we can find anything that's happening in our day. Jacob has he has three people that he's having to deal with in his life. Number one is Laban. Well, at this point, he's pretty much put Laban in the shadows and he's moved on. There's still two others, though, that he's having a bit of trouble with. Number one is Esau, and number two is Jacob. And anybody that is honest about life, and I say that because I run into a lot of people that they just kind of live in this bubble of something that they never spend really any time considering that maybe there's something bigger than everybody else out there and all of their problems that I need to deal with. And that's the problem, the Jacob that we look at in our mirrors in the morning. So with that, let's go to verse 4. Yaakov sends messengers ahead of him to Esau, his brother, and I think most of us are very familiar with all the things that are going on in this account. But I want to go to a few verses that I think are that kind of speak more to some of the things that are happening there and also now. And first of all is that in verse 6, and this is Genesis chapter 32, is verse 5 or 6, depending on your translation. And it says, I have cattle, donkeys, and flocks, male and female servants. I am sending to tell this news to my Adonai, is what it would say in Hebrew, Adonai, in order to win your favor. Now, the word here is that I may find, in most translations, if you look in Hebrew, it actually says that I may find favor in his sight. Let's see, that I may find favor. The word there is the word ken, the word grace. So I may find, it actually says this, it says matzah. And that's not matzah as far as what we eat at Passover, but it's M-A-T-S-A is the transliteration. Matzah ken ayin. So I may find favor or grace in his sight. Finding grace in his sight, does that remind you of anything that we've read? You know, kind of like the first couple of 3 Torah portions that were in Bereshit. Who was it that found favor or grace in the eyes of Adonai, of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. It was Noah. So it's the same concept that, I don't know if he was thinking about this or not, but he's trying to find the same type of protection, favor, grace, that in a time of violence and evil that was upon the face of the earth at the time, in the days of Noah, that Noah found this grace that caused him to rise above and protected him. But here is Jacob doing the same with Esau. Now, the word ken is a fascinating word. It's only 2 letters. It's a ket and a nun, and it's like a door of a tent, and it's a final nun, which is about life. The ket is also the 8th letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, and 8 is called new beginnings, or it's kind of a starting over type of a letter here. So the same thing, the same concept that Jacob or that Noah found in his day, well, is Jacob trying to find that same protection, that same favor, that same grace? But instead of looking look up, for your redemption draws near. Look up, look into the hills in which your salvation comes from. He's looking for an earthly figure. He's looking for an earthly figure to bring forth something that's not available in the earthly realm, especially from someone called Esau, but he should be looking into the heavenly realm as Noah did. Understanding that there is no life in Esau. There is no appeasing Esau. Now, I said that Jacob had 3 people that he had to deal with. Laban is in the shadows now. Jacob is having to deal with Jacob, and Esau. Jacob's having to deal with Esau. And if we really get very, very down, rubber meets the road, we all have inside of us, as their mother had, the same tendencies, the same as Rebecca felt that fight within her between Jacob and the problems that Jacob would have in his life and Esau, and we all deal with those things, usually on a daily basis. And there's numerous, I love some of the Native American proverbs regarding this. It's like 2 dogs that are fighting inside of you, and someone asks which one is going to win. It's the statement of whichever one you feed the most is going to grow stronger and win. So in this setup, this meeting is between Jacob and Esau, and it's about him coming face to face with his brother, but it's also going to be about him coming face to face with himself. He does something, and this is in verse 2021, depending on your translation. Right now in the Complete Jewish Bible, it goes more of the Hebraic counting, so you can be off one verse, and depending on the translation. But it says, for he said, I will appease him first with the present that goes ahead of me, then after that I will see him myself. All right. Life lesson number 1. You will never find life in your Esau. Life lesson number 2. We should never try to appease Esau. Esau must be defeated, not appeased. Now, the word here in the Hebrew word is kafar. I literally would say, I will kafar him first. Do you remember once again where that word might have been? Yeah, it goes all the way back to the ark. There's two times that this word is used in the book of Genesis. One is, and Noah put pitch on the ark. He kafared. Yeah, I guess you would, to mix up a little English, Southern English, of course, and Hebrew there, he would have, in putting the pitch on it, he would have kafared it, okay? I don't really want that repeated, but I'm sure it will be at some point. It's also the word that we will see over in Leviticus and various other places that is the word atone, or it could be translated reconcile. So I will reconcile with these gifts that I'm sending forth. I'm going to reconcile with Esau. All right, you can't reconcile your Esau because Esau does not want to reconcile. Esau only has one focus in life, and that is the destruction of Jacob. When it comes, because the whole subject matter that is going from cover to cover in the scripture and is right here in front of our face is the word covenant. Esau, the spirit of Esau, which is Hasatan, will never be appeased or reconciled of, well, we'll kind of just share the covenant a little bit. And that should be a statement that should be on the front page of the Jerusalem Post and every other newspaper in Israel. Going on down to verse 23, it says that we know the account that he split the family into two groups. The prophetic significance there of later on the house of Israel being split into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. That's a different study than what I'm going to go into today. And it says that Jacob, and we're going to verse 23, Jacob was left alone. He has not been alone for quite some time. The last time that he was alone was when he walked into Haran and approached a well, and there he found his wife. That's really the last time that this boy has seen much loneliness, because after that, Laban is keeping him busy working, and then you're looking at two wives, two concubines, and we got a whole pile of children that are in tow. We're told about the 12 boys. One daughter is revealed to us, but the chances that there were other daughters in the mix is probably pretty good. What do you think? So he's had a lot of time that he has not had any time. But now he finds himself alone, which is probably the best thing that the best place for him, and it's a very good place for us once in a while. Scheduling times that you're just alone, that it's you and you and him, you and the Almighty, and there's no other distractions. Turning it all off so that you can reflect on what life is really about. So Jacob finds himself in this place of alone, and he that night wrestles with what the scripture calls a man. Now, Christianity has said that this is a pre-incarnate of the Messiah. There are others that say that this is the spirit, the guardian angel, if you would, of Esau. There are others that say that this is some kind of demonic force. Okay, I don't want to get into that one, because to me the conversation takes a detour down a dead-end road when we try to figure out the who. And I know the wording here, and I have my own opinions, okay? But I'm going to leave that with you to make that decision. I think that the better question to ask here is why? Why is this wrestling match that evening, that night? Why is it that this wrestling match is going to go on almost to daybreak? Because in essence, Jacob is actually wrestling with himself. Now, I did not say that that being that is there is Jacob, but the wrestling match is not as much about the being that is there, whoever it may be. The wrestling match is about bringing something out of Jacob himself. And he says, I will not let you go until you bless me, until you barak is the word there. Interesting enough, it's the same word going back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, that the first words that were given to Adam, even before he found out that Hava was inside of him, is the Almighty Barak. He blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Unashamed plug here. The message this month is called the Forgotten Commandment, and I was really struggling with what to speak on this month, and all of a sudden it was just like, there it is. And so that's available from our website. For those of you that already support us, is about the time that this video goes out, you'll be getting it on MP3. Those that get it on CD, it'll come just a little bit past that because I'm waiting for it to come back from the person that does our duplication for us. But if you would like a copy of that, all you have to do is email. You can go to our website and get information. But it's about it's about this commandment and this idea of be fruitful and multiply. Is that something that we've, as a body, as a movement, and I know that there's some that don't like the word movement, but as a whatever we are today, is it something we've forgotten about and maybe need to get back to? Okay, so much for the commercial message. That was a word from that was a word to our sponsors, okay? Not from our sponsors, but to our sponsors. So what is the blessing that Jacob is looking for? What is it that he is needing in this moment? It's not favor with Esau. It's all about him. And that's why I say the wrestling match is not about who, but is about why. The wrestling match is to be about a change of status. Now, we see in this that Jacob, this being, says, you will no longer be called Yaakov, the supplanter, I think wrongly translated deceiver, but you will not be called supplanter. You will not be called the one that is grabbing the heel. But you're getting a change of name, which in that day was not just something to, put in for a new driver's license, but it was about a change of status. So when the best way to look at it today is when husband and wife, and this is, I guess, still this tradition is holding, it's holding a little at least, that the wife takes on the last name of the husband, then goes to get a new driver's license, but is that new driver's license is just a name on the driver's license, but it is about a status change of life. And so with Jacob being changed, his name being changed to Israel, this is about a status. This is about he was wrestling himself, and he won. He won out. And so he goes from being called the supplanter, the second fiddle person that's always trying to grab at something and reach farther. He is now pushed to the front and is called the Prince of El, or Israel. This is, what do we see? To look a little bit in the politics, not of America, but of Israel itself. What is going on there in Israel? What is going on in the political systems of Israel? We still have the prime ministers, the candidates, and all of these other people that are supplanters. They, yes, sometimes can be deceivers. They're trying to compromise. They're trying to appease. They're doing anything except standing up. So I ask a question. This is probably a question that has never been asked. At least I've never thought of it until this morning. I think I'm going to run this one by Hanok tomorrow when I talk with him. Should the nation of Israel today, starting in May 14th of 1948, should the nation of Israel have been called Israel, or would it have been best or more truthful to have called it the nation of Yaakov? Just let you consider that one for a moment, because Israel is still Israel as the political system today, and should I say Israel as the scattered exiles in the world? Should we probably refer to ourselves more as the house of Yaakov than the house of Israel? And we need to go through some wrestling, or as Barry would say from Virginia, some wrestling. We need to go through those wrestling matches that we're wrestling with ourselves, and we're seeking the blessing of the status change, to go from the supplanter, the one who is always grabbing for something, to the person who is the Prince of El. Okay, moving on from there. In chapter 33 is the infamous time of which Yaakov and Esav come together, and the word says that they meet, they hugged, they fell on each other's neck, and the word says in English that Esav kissed him, but with the wording that is in Hebrew and the letters, there are actually the dots above that, and it's more the connotation of that Esau gave him a little bit of a bite on the neck. Now, what is that all about? He bit him. Did he see, just let's go on a little speculation trail here, that at the end of this, so he fell on his neck, kissed him, and they wept. So the two of them are weeping over something. Is the weeping over the fact that they haven't seen each other in like 20 years? Maybe not. Maybe they're weeping for a different reason. Esav is weeping over the realization, I'm not going to be able to kill this guy. I came out here into the desert with intentions to kill him. See, in 20 years since Yaakov has left his home, Esau's never changed. Okay, he's still carrying that grudge. And so for 20 years, he's been plotting of when I see my brother, this is what I'm going to do. Why? Because he's jealous. He's jealous of his brother. Esav's basic problem in life is that Yaakov has the covenant. He has it legitimately because Esau sold it. So the problem's not Yaakov, the problem's Esau. And so now, because of Esau's indiscretion, because of his not caring about the covenant, he now no longer has the covenant. So that turns to jealousy toward his brother instead of anger toward himself. See, Esau should have, for 20 years, that anger should have turned to an anger of his own being, admitting that he was the one that was the problem. Instead, he becomes jealous of his brother. And let me tell you, jealousy is something that will produce, jealousy is like throwing wood on a fire and continuing to throw it on, and then deciding to throw a little gasoline on there, and then some diesel fuel, and then it's this continuing consuming of anger that comes forth, all because Esau made a wrong decision. Jacob didn't. Okay? Now, so is the weeping a weeping of, I'm not going to be able to kill this guy? I see that now. And the weeping on Jacob's or Israel now, on Israel's side, is that bite that I'm feeling there in my neck. You know, he didn't really sink his teeth in, but I felt like he really could have. And so he begins to weep out of the thought of, I'll never be reconciled with my brother. My brother's not going to let this go. There's no appeasing him. There's no atoning. There's no reconciliation. There's no finding favor in his sight. So the two boys in my thought process are weeping over two different things. In verse 10, Yaakov says, no, please, if I have won your favor, okay, then accept my gift. Just seeing your face has been like seeing the face of Elohim, and now you have received me. I think there's a little bit more going on behind the scenes. This is, when we talk about face to face, is panim la panim, face to face, inward being to inward being. But here, the wording is that I have, in seeing panim, it's panim ra panim. So in seeing your face, I have ra. What's the word ra? It's a word that means perceived. It's the same word that when Abraham is on the mountain, he perceived into the kingdom. He saw into something that was in the future. So there's something now that Yaakov is seeing, is perceiving in the eyes, in the face of Esau. He's seeing things like he has never seen them before, because and again, I'm kind of going out here a little ways, but this is just where I go. He's looking into Esau, and he's not just seeing this as his jealous, angry brother, but he's perceiving what is going to be in the future. he's perceiving that Esav is a part of the development of Israel, in Israel moving toward the kingdom. Hope you get a hold of that a little bit there. So let's go on to chapter 34. And one time, Dina, it just starts out. One time, Dina, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Yaakov, went out to visit the local girls. Why? Well, first of all, we have to ask the question, why are they spending time in Shechem? This is modern day Nablus. Okay, remember the story of Abraham. Abraham came into the land. He came to Elon Moreh, which is overlooking Shechem, and then he made his way down south. When Jacob leaves, he retraces backwards those steps of Abraham leaving, and then he would retrace the steps coming in. Those would be the same steps that the 12 tribes would eventually retrace when they came back out of Egypt. So this is a pattern that we see happening here. His vow had been, though, that if you, or when, is better Hebrew wording there, when you bring me back to this mountain that is called Beit El, I believe it to be Mount Moriah, when you bring me back here and you've provided for me food and clothing, then you will be my Elohim, and I will give 1/10 of all that I have unto you. Well, he's got like 11 boys at the time. He still has, he's got, two wives, 2 concubines, and let's just put it this way, a whole pile of stuff. I mean, this guy has sheep running around everywhere. So he's a very rich man. Why does he stop? Instead of fulfilling his vow immediately, get that, instead of fulfilling his vow immediately, he stops for a little while in Shechem. Long enough that Dina becomes familiar with some of the locals there in the town. At that time, it was a fairly small place. Question: why is Dina here in this town alone? Could the whole rivalry between the 2 wives and the 2 concubines, remember it says here that Dina was the daughter of Leah, had Yaakov, in spending more time with Rachel, had he also kind of forgotten about the kids of that other wife? Again, speculation, yes. But what we see here is a prophetic picture to us today of allowing our children to visit Shechem. How is this being played out today? Shechem is, we see this as a place in which the daughter of the covenant, and Dina was within the covenant. She would have married within the tribes, and she would have been instrumental in the lineage of the covenant in some way. But instead, she's in a place in which they will try to purchase her as a local prostitute. and then she will be raped. Her dignity, her virginity is taken from her. Her purity is taken from her. So my question, what are the schemes of this world that people send their covenant children into? How about religious systems that are mixtures? So this is what is happening. There's a Shem is trying to mix seed with the covenant. What about school systems? Okay, I'm not saying that everyone should homeschool. I'm not degrading people that may send their children to public school. I want to just kind of throw some things out for, not in any judgmental way, but to just throw it out for you to consider in this day. You know, what's being taught? Do you know what's being taught? I would imagine most people that watch me, yeah, you keep a pretty good handle on that. What about the video games? What about the television programming? Is it, how close? You know, Lot, he raised his daughters in Sodom and Gomorrah. Look how that happened, how that worked out for him. Well, here we got, Yaakov's, he's not letting his daughter live there, but he's letting her visit quite often. And look what happens. Just something to consider a little bit. So we go on through these verses. We know what happens with with Simeon and Levi, and that'll be talked about in some of the blessings and the words unto these tribes. For Simeon, it will end up costing him dearly, because he will be scattered into the tribes, which means it was probably Simeon's idea to begin with. Levi went along with it. We go all the way to verse 30. Yaakov says to Simeon and Levi, "You have caused me trouble by making me stink in the opinion of the local inhabitants, the Canaanite and the Perizzai. Since I don't have many people, they'll line themselves together against me and attack me, and I'll be destroyed, I and my household." Excuse me here, Yaakov. Your daughter has been raped, and you're concerned about how you will look in the eyes of the people around you? Do you think that maybe that's the wrong focus here? Just saying. There's a couple of interesting things to consider here. That just because you've had a change of status and you have the name Israel on this side of the kingdom doesn't mean that you're not still struggling with some things. Okay. Doesn't mean that everything is perfect. Because even though, and this is interesting in light of Ephesians chapter 2, when it says, "You former Gentiles, which were outside of the covenant of Israel, have now been brought near." Yes, we've had a status change, but our status change still has to have some change. There's still some place to go. And as long as we're on this side of the kingdom, there's always, even though your name has been changed, there's always going to be a battle for the mixture. Those who are not of the covenant will always try to take you from the covenant. Those who are not of the covenant will try to take you from the covenant. It's okay. I mean, it's December, and we've all been, locked up and whatever. I don't know however much your life has been affected. Um, since I work from home, mine hasn't been as affected. I haven't gone to Lowe's quite as many times, I guess, but that's okay. But still, there's this battle that continues to go on, and during this time, we're still looking forward to a time in which we won't have these battles, and it's like December. Okay, we just entered. Today's December 1st as I'm recording this, and there'll be those that'll say, I mean, we've had this lockdown, and we got Christmas is coming, and wouldn't it be great just to go ahead and get a tree and decorate and just have a little fun? It's okay. Don't get so upset. Just take some time. Because those that are not of the covenant will continue to try to mix in their non-covenant lifestyle into you who are to be walking a covenant lifestyle. Watch out for mixtures. The boys have a reply to their dad. Should we let our sister be treated like a whore? The commentators have dealt with this verse for a long time. We don't have a recorded answer from Yaakov. Is this to somehow kind of gloss over? I don't know. Is it for his protection? Was there some repentance there? Was there some weeping there? We don't know what is there. But the question seemed to stun, it just kind of reading between the lines here. Maybe the question stunned Yaakov enough that he was very open to moving on in the next verse. Because it says that Elohim said to him, get up, go to Beit El, live there, make an altar, go back to where you told me you were going in the first place. The story is up for conjecture in that midst. Let's go on to chapter 35. He says, then Yaakov said to his household in verse 2 and all the others with him, get rid of the foreign gods that you have with you, purify yourselves and put on fresh clothes. Why are these false gods allowed? Okay? If Yaakov is walking in covenant, then why is he allowed this in his camp? The only false gods that we really know about are the ones that his wife stole from her father Laban and then hid in the last Torah portion, hid under the saddle. Remember that one? The question has to be asked. Does Yaakov know about, and I don't want to just, I was talking with some folks this week, I am very hesitant to just, use these people as human punching bags to make us look good. But at the same time, we see that there were false gods there in the camp, and it's the beloved wife. Does Yaakov know about this, but he's unwilling to confront his wife directly, so he kind of says something off the cuff to everybody, hoping that she'll get it? Was it a lack of leadership? Those are all possibilities. In verse 6, they came to Yaakov, and all the people with him arrived at Bethel in the land of Canaan, and he built an altar. But then he leaves there and starts heading down south, and then in, let's go to verse 11. Elohim further said to him, I am El Shaddai, be fruitful and multiply. So as he enters back into, and he is now fully into the land, he comes back and gives him a reminder of what his true job is. This goes to the message that I taught this month for December, the forgotten commandment. I'm giving all the clues here, but this is a commandment that he needed to be reminded of, and I think we need to be reminded of in our day. Be fruitful and multiply. But then in the next verses, after he's told to be fruitful and multiply, we read about the death of Rachel. She, in childbirth, she dies. Now, if we were to go back a few pages, we would see that this is the words that were pronounced by Jacob himself when he looks at Laban and said, the person that has the false gods will be put to death. Did he speak those words over his wife? Understand that our words have power, folks. I know I can say this until I'm blue in the face, but the vast majority of people don't get this, okay? Let me give you just a quick example because I'm running out of time. I'm just dying to do that. Really? Whatever that is. I'm just dying to do that. I'd kill for that. Are those really words that, think about the power of your words, because it is possible that this pronouncement of Yaakov is the reason for his wife's death. And then she names him son of my grief, and then Benjamin, and then Yaakov changes the name to son of my right hand. This is the only one of the boys that will be named by the father. Only one. Out of 12, only one named by the father. The rest of them were named by their mother, and in fact, Benjamin almost was. But every one of those children, the names of the sons were about the issues of the mother. Your children do not have the power to redeem your issues. Only the Almighty has the power to redeem our issues. Let's face our issues. Let's face our Labans, our Yaakovs, our Esavs, and move forward. Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing, see you again next week. And until then, okay, how many times I got to say it? Be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha Yisa Adonai elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom.